Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Meg and Maggie podcast. This is episode 61. Wow. Just wow. You just said this on the last episode. We're recording two back to back today. So I know you're listening to this a week later, but we just recorded last week's episode before this. And you just said that 60 is so exciting and 61 is so exciting too. I just like every time I share with someone that we have a podcast and, I like show them it and they're like, wow, you have so many episodes. I'm like, yeah. We do.
And when we say it every time, I'm like, no one cares. Like everyone's like, okay, cool. 61. Like what's the topic on? And to us though, when it's like your baby that you gave so many weeks to, you're like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so bear with us as we do that every week.
Yeah. Episode 61. Today, we are talking about lots of things, probably. Breakups, body image, life in your 20s. But we just want to prepare you for the fact that today's conversation is going to be a little bit lighter. We're kind of like, normally we take you through the front door, right? We're like, okay, straight to the value, like straight to the kitchen type of thing. Today, we're like going in the side door. We're like going to kind of show you maybe some like behind the scenes, more of just kind of what we think, who we are, just a different,
in the basement.
different vibe today. Well, I don't know. Basements can be creepy sometimes, but
patio,
patio, just like we're coming in from a different angle. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah. There's so many different like aspects of who we are. And we bring you into like the heavy hitter with a punch, like value filled episodes. And today we're like, you know what, let's give them like the lighter side of us as if like you called us over the phone just for fun. And we're going to bring you some of that. So the main themes of this episode were breakups, body image, and life in your 20s. That's like the umbrella term. So I'm really excited for you all to hear that. We're going to start with breakups just because I feel like that is absolutely inevitable in life, but then also absolutely inevitable in your 20s and teenage years, especially. So we're going to kind of stick to it with the theme that how do we survive breakups? Because in the moment, sometimes it feels like you're dying, literally, like it feels like the worst thing ever. And also, I think it's really important, Maggie, to kind of have a mini little conversation on gauging either A, when it's time for a breakup, or B, when you know that like it's time to move on, which is essentially the same thing. So I guess it's not A and B. But I think that's a really important conversation. And where did we learn that? Who like came to you in high school or college and was like, listen, you're going to go through seasons where you're going to date people, right? And you're going to have a partner and then you're going to be like, you know what? I don't know if this is working, or they're going to be like, I don't know if it's working. No one came around and said, this is how you end a relationship with another person whom you most likely have a lot of love for.
Yeah.
I needed to sign up for that course.
I know, same.
Like, forget like physics. I mean, I'm sure it's very important. I didn't take physics because that was not my jam, but I needed like a breakup 101 course in my 20s. Like, it's difficult. So can you speak to that a little bit? Like first of all, how many times have you had to go through that?
Oh, too many. Way too many.
That's awesome.
I had a lot of relationships. There was a lot of like, searching for love outside of myself, trauma response situations. But I also think that this applies to all sorts of relationships, right? It could be when you have to leave a work situation, or, you're leaving your school situation or your living situation or whatever, right? I think that the same kind of concepts apply to when you're ending a relationship. It doesn't have to be a romantic one, right? But we could totally talk about those. I don't know. I can't count how many times I have, ended a relationship. Thankfully, the one I'm in now is not going to end. So we kind of moved past that, which is wonderful.
But into your marriage, which is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. But let me tell you, there have been a wide range of ways breakups have gone, right? There's been the I got dumped. There's been the I did the dumping. There's been the like mutual agreement to leave. Baxter, we are not playing right now. Please go lay down. There's been the I broke up with someone over text message and probably shouldn't have done that.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean? Like there's been a wide range of situations.
We're qualified to discuss this topic because anyone listening who has gone through a breakup they don't all go the same. And
No.
I feel like, I wonder for you, was your, and maybe I'm just stretching here, but for mine at least, it went from like, okay, shitty way of handling it, shitty way of handling it, shitty way of handling it. Okay, beautiful. That was the way to do it. Like as I got older, my, what would you say? My ways and our ways of ending a relationship got elevated with my age and with my growth is really what it is.
Baxter, please go lay down. Sorry.
I love that there's video now because you can all see that Baxter is her dog who's bringing her a ball and asking her to play.
I know,
constantly.
and I want to play with him, but it's just not the moment. So when we're done, we'll have a play. But now that I think about that, okay. So actually, this sounds really bad, but like as I got older, the breakups got worse.
Okay.
And however, as I got older, my work breakups got better.
Okay.
So I definitely learned something somewhere.
Growth. Mm-hmm.
But I think for me, what it came down to with like romantic relationships as I got older was I just realized that this was not what I wanted. And so I was like, get out just as fast as possible. Right. So it was more of like free myself from this situation versus like keep the friendship because like I just didn't care. So I think there was like a component of that where like I just didn't have any desire to have this person in my life at all anymore. So I didn't really care if I left the door open for them to be in my life at all anymore. However, when it came to work situations, I got much better about, like being a better human.
But at the same time, though, I'm not going to let you like slough it off as that, because you being able to say run out as fast as possible tells me, and I'm interpreting that as you knew yourself so much more. Therefore, you knew if it was in alignment or not. So however the fuck you had to do that is how you had to do that. Now, listen, we're not saying to go burn people's cars to the ground and,
No.
all these things. Sometimes I think we talk a little wild and we're like, just get out as fast as possible and break their heart, do the thing.
Yeah, we have to, clarify again. When we say light fires, they're metaphorical. We light
fires.
metaphorical
T-shirts are
fires.
don't worry. That's amazing. So mine started off more in the sense that, and I think we can both relate to this, when you go through breakups and you don't know who you are, it's really, really hard. And again, don't hear me wrong, that does not mean that when I knew myself, it got any easier. Okay. Ending a relationship with someone whom which you once loved, or even if you weren't in love, but like you knew that they were someone special to you at some point in your life, it's so hard to end that for a bunch of different reasons. But the reason why I really wanted to have this conversation is that that does not mean that they should not happen. I know a lot of people who go by the mindset of it's not going to be easy, so just stick with that person. And if that aligns for you, fine. Okay, do it. But at the same time, I'm going to say to you that I think a lot of times, go back to last week's episode of Choose Your Hard. Yes, there's work related to relationships, right? It is not supposed to be an uphill battle the entire time. And if it is, I don't want it. If that's what it's supposed to be, quote unquote, supposed to be, I don't want it. I can't do it. There are seasons of it, and there are ways to embellish upon relationships. But if your relationship feels like a constant battle of within yourself, or a battle within the person, or whatever it is, or your beings are kind of battling each other and it's not easy enough, I think the breakups are really healthy and really powerful. And that's a perfect example. I can't believe we didn't think of this for Choose Your Hard. The choosing your heart of going through a breakup to then get to a better place to where both people are able to step into their, next level or next relationship, or just be by themselves, is really, really powerful. So can we talk about can we just like give a moment of like the suckiness of a breakup?
Yes.
The intense feelings of pain, confusion, uncertainty, insecurity that can come up within yourself. There are so many fucking emotions that go into breakups that I don't know if we talk about enough, because when you're in them, when I've been in breakups, sometimes I felt like no one else could understand what's going on. Meanwhile, pretty much everyone can. That's how it feels. Breakups feel like this vacuum of like shit, like just this like little world of like everything sucks right now and I'm dying. What do I do?
Yes, they do. They do feel like that. That is true. Very true. I think, going back to another conversation from last week's episode is the concept of letting it all be there at once, right? Because along with it being terrible and feeling like death and just, so many questions and insecurities and like, is this all my fault? And, all that type of stuff, or the thoughts of like, I wasted so much time. I can't believe I, did this, blah, blah, blah. At the same time, usually there's a sense of liberation and freedom and calm and release, right?
Mhm.
And that beautiful side of it, it exists at the same time. And that's okay. That's good, right? And I think that sometimes, I know I used to get stuck in the sucky part and not focus really at all on the good parts. And then you
Mhm.
miss that, you kind of
Mhm.
miss that release. And I think that like that's the whole reason why you did it, right? That's the whole reason why you did it. So I think it's important to focus on that a little bit.
I do too. And I also think so if we get into more of we will bring you some like the value and the practical side of breakups. I think that through all that suckiness and confusion and, pain, that all still exists. As I my most recent example of my last breakup was the healthiest way that we could have gone about things, me and this person. And it still sucked. And it was still awful. And it was still painful. And all the questions were still there. But there was also a level of comfort within myself of knowing yourself that even when something is hard, we're making the right decision. And it's really confusing though, because you go back and forth and you're like, am I making the right decision? Okay, I'm not so sure. Like you still second guess yourself a lot, no matter how, honestly, I don't think all the work you could do on yourself and all the elevatedness you can do to improve the person that you are, it's still hard and it's still confusing. But one thing that I have learned and the insight that I would want to share is that there is a way to honor who you are and go about things in a very truthful way. So, with my last relationship, I think we both knew deep down that our visions for our lives didn't align in the same way. And they aligned in some ways, and it was beautiful in so many ways. I think that one thing I want to talk about is that we know when something is bad or toxic or wrong that we need to leave, right? We just know that. It's inherent, it's societal. With when something's really good, but you have this little baby calling that there's something more, that's more difficult. So I want to speak to that person for a moment because that was me, especially in my last relationship. Everything felt in within me like it was like 85% of the way there, right? And everything for the most part was beautiful. On paper, everything made sense to the world around us. You would think we were the most beautiful couple, and we were. It's not like behind closed doors, we were a terrible couple. We were not. We grew together, is really the biggest thing. But we both knew deep down, I think, that alignment wise, there were some key things that were off, some key big time decisions that were off. And I want to speak to anyone who feels like that feels like, well, we're almost all the way there, so we should just be fine with it. I feel like there is a big difference between, and Maggie, maybe you can explain this a little bit better. I feel like there's a big difference between, oh my gosh, I need to find the perfect person. So I'm just going to like keep waiting, keep waiting, keep waiting versus I just have a feeling and a gut feeling that this isn't fully it. And I need to find out what it is. And it
Mm.
is not perfection. Hold on. Let me pause.
Yeah, that's such a tough situation, right? I have I've been there before in romantic relationships. Um, I've definitely been there in work relationships. I've definitely been there in like where I live relationships.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's this interesting situation where you're like, everything is good, but I know that there's something better, right?
Mm,
And everyone else, this, goes back to like our conversation with Johnny too. If you didn't catch that episode, go listen to it. But um, everyone else might think I'm crazy
mhm,
for, leaving this thing or this job or this place or person or whatever. But I know that it's not the right thing for me. I like the concept of soul contracts. I think I've
mm,
talked about this on the show before, but I'm not sure. This is something that I've learned about somewhat recently within the last couple of years. And I try not to get too hooked on this because with everything, you can really overthink, right? But if I'm in a situation where I'm kind of mourning the loss of a person or a place or job or, whatever opportunity, um, that was really good, but I know it's time to move on. I like to think of this concept of a soul contract where like two souls, this could be people, right? It could be you in a place, whatever, are coming together to help each other in some way. And
Mm.
some relationships are meant to last for your whole life. Some are meant to last for a really short amount of time. But you gain what you need from them, right? And when it's
Mm.
time to move on, I like this concept because it helps me, think about the fact that it's okay because we both got what we needed out of this time together. And now if we force ourselves to stay, then we're not allowing in the new soul contracts that we need to like learn whatever's next or have the
Mm.
new experiences or opportunities, right? And it kind of just settles me a little bit because when you are in a situation where when you know that you need something else, someone else, somewhere else, whatever, it is so hard to convince yourself that that's the right thing to do
I
when
know.
everything is so comfortable.
I
It is
know.
so difficult. And so I don't know, that concept, it just settles me a little bit and it helps me remember that it's okay to move on and it's okay for things to change. So I just wanted to share that because it really helps me.
I think that's a great idea. And I also think that that is a way to honor both things that if you are someone, which you probably are, and I think most people are deep down, we have this beautiful inner compass within us if we can get through all the dirt and all the trauma and all the shit that's on top of it. Once you can do that and start to uncover it, there is a beautiful guide within yourself. You're knowing your gut, God, whatever you want to call it. And it's a beautiful thing. And it's the most authentic thing. It's beautiful. And if we're talking to you and you're like, what in the fuck are they talking about? Just start. Okay. Just start by getting quiet. That's just all I'm gonna say for now. We could probably do a whole, God, like
A
so
year
many
on this
episodes.
stuff.
Yeah, like literally that could be our entire show, but that would just get really like deep really fast. We wouldn't be able to have like these fun, bubbly conversations too. But I think that with breakups in particular, to bring us back to this main point, it all comes back to that if you know, or you have a feeling, or you have a calling, or a longing, or a nudge to move along to something else, or to move along and be by yourself for a little while, I don't think there's anything wrong with at least trying that. And when we go through breakups, the thing that really helps me the most is knowing that no matter what, I'm okay because I have me. Like it's going to be okay. And when you feel so incredibly attached to something, someone, or some place, okay, if we bring it into psych terms, we're going to call it codependency. If we bring it into everyday terms, we're going to call it the need for something else outside of yourself. And that's a dangerous place to be. Because as Maggie mentioned, I don't remember which episode it was, but Maggie has mentioned that when you rely on someone else, something else, someplace else to bring you happiness, you are at the mercy of them taking that from you as well. And that's a really, really dangerous place to be. So I feel like we covered breakups really well. I would also really love to hear from our listeners. I really want our podcast to be collaborative, and I think everyone already knows that, but seriously, come into our DMs. Like, let's talk about this. Maybe we'll bring a listener on to have some of these conversations that I think are needed, and also honestly, more so how to do it in a way that aligns with you and not the outside world. I think that's the biggest thing with breakups in general. And even just recognizing and knowing that it sucks for every single person, pretty much, good or bad, is comforting. Like there's strength in just knowing that it's sucky for
Yes,
everyone else.
honestly.
So really. And let's go into body image now, because that's
Let's
another
go.
huge one in your 20s, teenage
Yes,
years, 30s, 40s, 50s, it's everywhere,
forever.
forever. But 20s especially. I think that it's a really prominent conversation piece within our age range. So Maggie, can you share with us? I really don't know how this conversation is going to unfold, which is always when it turns out the best. So how do you feel in your 20s navigating your relationship with your body image specifically?
It's been a journey, that's for sure. There's been lots of ups and downs, lots of good times, lots of not so good times. It's something just like everything that changes, right?
Mm,
And so I go through seasons of feeling really great about the way that my body looks, no matter how it actually looks, right?
mhm,
And I go through seasons of feeling like absolute shit about how my body looks, no matter how it actually looks,
mm.
right? And I think that's a big part of this that we try to pretend isn't the case. Like we try to pretend that if my body looks quote unquote better, I'll feel better about how it looks, but that's just not true. There's no correlation between how you actually look and how you feel about how you look, right? It's like
All
it's it's
mental.
it's like it's this own separate thing, right? It doesn't matter how you actually look, you still could feel good or bad about it,
Okay,
right?
I'm gonna interrupt you because I need to know this answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is going on during the seasons where you feel good within your body? Like what is happening during those times? I know there's a pattern. Spit
Mhm.
it out.
Yeah,
What is going on?
I am choosing my heart correctly.
Mm,
I am choosing the things that are hard in the moment that give
mhm.
me the positive outcome in the long term. I'm choosing the things that are in alignment with what I want most, not what's just easy and convenient and will give me like a rush of satisfaction at this moment,
Yeah.
right? And when I am not doing the things that are good for me in the long term, which for me is consistent exercise. I mean, it's the same for everyone, whether you want to admit it or not. It's all the same, right? You need to move your body. You need to eat nutrient dense foods. You need to surround yourself with people who are positive, uplifting, not negative, complaining about everything all the time. You need to spend some time quiet for yourself. You need to go outside. You need to see the sun, all these things, right?
Basics. It's the
Basics.
basics.
And when I do those things, I feel good about my body. And when I don't do those things, I feel terrible about my body. And that's
Oh
what
my
it comes down
gosh.
to.
I am so happy that we're going in such a simple way because body image could be, and we could, if we wanted to, we could really dissect it and pull it all around in the layers and we could get into all that. I don't think it's beneficial for this conversation. It's very plain and simple. I feel different about my body one day and different the next. Now, granted, I have a history with like a little more complicated relationship, not than you, just in general.
Mhm.
Um, I think everyone kind of does. And when we do that, I think it's really interesting to start to recognize patterns with our body image. So I notice it when I am taking really good care of myself. It doesn't even matter how my clothes fit, it doesn't matter how I look. None of that has anything to do with it. When I am nourishing my body, mind, and soul, I feel great. When I am not, I don't feel great.
Yep.
And it's one of those things that is so apparent and it's such a like flashing light of like, Meg, it's right here in front of your face. When you nourish yourself and you take care of yourself, you feel good. When you don't nourish yourself and you don't take care of yourself, you feel like shit. Plain and simple. We could go all day long about like why my body image is like this and why this happened and as a kid and da da da. And like we could get into all that kind of stuff. I don't think it matters. It's very clear that this happens when I do this. This happens when I do this. Now, at the same time, I think it's really important, which we love to draw this parallel for you all, is that there are some times where that's okay. Feel the bad body image day. Feel the season of feeling like crap if that's what you want to do. Okay. We're not saying, if we were saying that it was easy to just,
Fix
always
it.
have good body image, we
Yeah.
would wake up every single day and do the shit that we know we need to do. We're humans. We don't do that. It's actually a lot of times where I don't do that. And I think that's part of the, I don't really like the word journey because it's so cliche, but it's the fucking journey. Okay. Like, it's, I hate that word because it's so like the journey, just like, do it. But like, it is that's the work. That's the journey of I'm moving towards this. I know that when I take care of myself, I feel better. Plain and simple. Am I still going to wake up and choose not to do them and feel like crap? Yeah. Oh, like
Yep.
what are we going to do? It's life. I don't know when people like sell us on things of like just do this, it's like I can't function like that. And I can either choose to keep going in the sense of, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. Why can't I function like that? Or I can just recognize and accept that I'm never going to be that robot type machine person who can just like hammer it out and, always take the best care of themselves. And I can just give myself grace and be relatable, right? to most people, but prioritize that the majority of the time and work towards that more and more. Because I
Yeah,
want to
I
feel
think
good.
exactly. That's the thing, right? Is that I think the other part that comes into this is we all have a baseline, we all have a ceiling, right?
Mm,
Of where we sit, right? So if we take this with, how we feel physically, you
mhm,
have a baseline of what you're not going to let yourself go below, right? Like for me at this point in my life, I don't drink alcohol, but
mhm,
still my baseline, like the absolute lowest is I'm not getting drunk, right?
mm,
Okay. Like there is a chance just because I'm a human that I might drink alcohol, right?
mhm,
There is a very good chance that I'm not going to, but my
mhm,
baseline, my bottom is not necessarily not drinking alcohol yet, right?
mhm,
Okay. My ceiling is doing all these things to take care of myself every day, all the time, right?
mhm,
I'm usually going to be somewhere in the middle,
mhm,
right? But you're not going to go outside of your baseline and your ceiling. And so the way I like to look at this is whatever thing you are um, looking at. Let's take exercise as an example, like to make it a little bit more specific and a little easier to understand. Okay. So let's say your baseline is you exercise 0 days per week, right? And then your ceiling right now is you exercise 3 days per week. Like that's the max you're going to do right now is 3 days per week, right? But you usually don't feel as good as you want to feel with that baseline and ceiling, right? So, okay, let's try to slightly shift. Maybe we move the baseline to 1. So you're always going to exercise 1 day per week, even if you don't do anything else. And we move the ceiling up to 4,
mm,
right? Okay,
mm,
so now if my average is 2, then I'm going to feel a little bit better than I did before. Right. And we can
mm,
move up, move up. So now maybe my baseline is 2 days per week. I never go less than 2 days per week without working out.
mhm,
Right. And my ceiling is 5. The most I'm ever going to do is 5 because I just can't imagine doing anything more than that. Now your
mhm,
average is around 3, you feel a lot better, right? Then once your average is around 3, you can probably get yourself to have your baseline be 3 days per week, right? I never go a week where I work out less than 3 times because that's just your baseline, right? And we can slowly shift our habits to get closer to where we want to go, but we don't have to do that by going from 0 days per week to 7 days per week.
right,
Right?
right.
It's like we can always move towards what we want, but we don't have to expect ourselves to be 100% go 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 like perfect all the time.
Mhm. And that is the practical lens that I really appreciate in these conversations. And I think that's where the value comes as well to this conversation. Even though it's light and fluffier, it's still so important that we have these tangible ways of looking at things. And this is something that I actually heard on another podcast. I forget, I think it was on. So if you want to go listen to it, I will shout them out. I thought it was really interesting. It was on the Call Her Daddy podcast. Alex Cooper hosts that. And she had on someone named Harry Jowsey, who was like from like a reality TV show or something like that. It's just a light podcast I was listening to. And during this light podcast filled with like nothing but fun and laughter and jokes, the guy, Harry Jowsey, said something so profound where he was talking about somebody that he knew in high school who was not the most attractive person, not the fittest person, not the most like who you would assume to have the most confidence, right? A lot of times we assume that looks and body image correlate with our confidence, right? And
Also just like your worth and how people perceive you and like all this stuff.
right. It's interesting. And he was saying how he asked this guy from his high school who was so confident, so cool with like himself, and he carried himself so differently. This guy, Harry, asked this guy in high school, what is like, how do you do this? And this guy from high school was saying, I get one body. I don't get to switch bodies. I don't get to exist in another home. This body is my home, period. So I don't get to start over. So if I'm not going to try my best to feel comfortable within my skin, I don't get a do-over. I don't get to try this again. We may as well just try our best to exist comfortably within this body. And I was like, whoa, mind blown. Like, did not expect that. That's phenomenal. And I think that that's really worthy for anyone to hear. And he was saying it actually in a sweet way of like, women, like, go love your, like, you don't get another body. So try your best to have a healthy relationship with it. And he wasn't as like elaborate in that way, but we can channel that baseline of we don't get to exist within another body. This is our home. This is our space. So what can we do to move towards having the healthiest relationship we can with body image?
I
Right?
love that so much. That is such a great way to look at it, right? Because in that, from what I took from it, it's not saying, oh, just like be complacent,
No.
right? But
Mm-hmm.
enjoy yourself.
Right.
You can have goals, you can want to be better, you can want to feel better, look better, whatever. But also, you have to enjoy where you are
Mm-hmm.
and what you look like now and how much weight you can lift now or whatever. You know what I mean? Like what you're doing, where you are. Like you can have a goal to move to Nashville, right? But if you are constantly miserable right now where you are in upstate New York, well, your misery is just going to transfer to Nashville,
Right.
you know? Like it's
We
not going to
live for
magically
this.
change.
Well, I think to a lot of people's mindsets, it does. I'll be happy when. I'll be
Yeah.
happy when. And that is, I mean, you already know this about Maggie and I, but we don't really like happiness as the goal. We want to be content and peaceful and within alignment with ourselves. Happiness is fleeting, just like joy and pain and misery. When we start to, there is a fine line between acceptance and complacency. And I think it's so funny, Maggie. Hold on, I have to say this. I think it's so funny that we're like, we're going to bring you the lightest episode ever. And rainbows and butterflies, and we're gonna like let you in like on the side door of our lives, and then we're like, anyways, there's a big line between like
We made it back to the main room.
we made
Okay.
it back to the main room. We'll break out in a second. Or we won't, and you're so welcome for this beautiful value. No, I think that when we talk about these concepts, it's hard to I think a lot of people, because I was one of them in the past, when we would talk about breakups or body image or any of these things in our 20s, there's a time and a place for just wanting commonality between people. There is something so beautiful with just, coming to you and saying, Maggie, I'm going through so much hardship right now in my breakup and I'm in so much pain. And there's so much power in you just looking at me and listening and saying, Meg, I hear you. Like that's really hard. And I've been there. Beautiful, right? Gorgeous exchange. And here, I'm going to bring you some tough love. That's a beautiful exchange. But if you're only surrounding yourself with people who give you that solid, simple acceptance, one, that's a beautiful baseline. Two, you're not going to elevate to the next level.
Gotta push the ceiling.
You have to push
the ceiling.
That's gorgeous. We need more people like that. And then we also need people, like if I went to Maggie and said that, we also need people who look you in your eyes and listen to you for how are we going to get to the next level, right? Body image. Maggie, I really struggle with this insecurity of mine. Like it's so hard for me. You're going to acknowledge it and make it valid and feel seen and heard and blah, blah, blah. Then you're also going to say, how do we move towards feeling better, right? There's power in that. And you can do that for yourself.
You can. Yes, absolutely. Thank goodness there's power in it, because something that I am working on is doing more of the acknowledging and less of the how can we make it better, because I'm definitely like yeah, okay, cool, got this thing, like let's fix it, so I am trying to work on not jumping so quickly to fixing everything, and sometimes giving them that space to just be, right? Because they both have their value.
100%. And I think even just having the language to articulate that is what's cool. Like being able to even just have the language of allowing things to go in that way is what's really powerful. So is there anything else? We should do like a little like rapid fire of like 20s, like just like craziness in our 20s. But I'm trying to think like when we try and bring you guys some of this other side of us, I want you to hear the value. And we also want you to hear the like, we're still on the same, we're within the same, what's the word?
I don't know. I just feel like we're just here doing the thing too. Like we have breakups, we, struggle, all that type of stuff. Like we're just doing it. Mm-hmm. Just here doing the thing,
I like that. I like this concept. And I think that hearing more of it is helpful for anyone.
I agree. All right. We're going to have to prepare for a future episode with like the rapid fire things. I like doing those because they're very fun and they make us laugh a lot, which is fantastic. But my brain, nope. No, it's not going to happen.
Not today, guys. We're so sorry, but we will bring you more like this. If you like these type of episodes where we, start with concepts that are maybe just more everyday, like I think that's the better word. Like we said lighter, but these are more topics that are more conversational in everyday life as opposed to like the deepest soul searching of your entire existence, which we usually bring you, which we love. Let us know, leave us a review, slide into our DMs, tell us what you think, and we'll see you next week.
All right, everyone. Bye.